Your Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is sponsored by Purdy Insurance. Visit Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury or visit online at purdyinsurance.com. Sports talk where your voice counts. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And a very pleasant good afternoon to you. Welcome into another week of the Steve Jones Show. It's a best of week on News Radio 1070 WKOK. And Sean Carey. Sunbury Motors, Ford, Lincoln, Hyundai, North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury. And Sunbury Motors Kia on the Strip, routes 11 and 15 in Hummel's Wharf. Our website, stevejonesshow.com. We've got a Facebook page, too. Over the past month, we have seen a nice little spike in Facebook likes. Thanks so much. Appreciate that. So give us a like on Facebook if you haven't done that yet. And follow us on Twitter, our Twitter handle at SteveJonesPSU. And also you can subscribe to our Steve Jones Show podcast on either Apple Podcast app, iTunes, Google Play. Search Steve Jones Show. And when you subscribe, after the shows air live on WKOK, they'll drop to your smartphone or tablets. You can listen to them anytime, anywhere. And, of course, we always have 3 months of shows archived online at SteveJonesShow.com. Lots of ways to catch our shows. Going to hit the rewind button this week, one more time here this summer, before we go full bore football and so much more next week when Steve is back with us in the Sunbury Motor Studio. So coming up today, we've got replays with former Penn State tight end, now with the Miami Dolphins, NFL rookie Mike Gesicki. Get some Phillies baseball talk in next hour as well from PhillyBaseballInsider.com, Chuck Hickson, and some NBA discussion as well with Keith Smith. Well, Christian Hackenberg knows the situation. He's the fifth quarterback on the Eagles roster, and his chances of making the 53-man roster are slim. But after getting released by the Oakland Raiders in June and not having any training camp offers, despite getting calls from two other teams, the former Penn State star said it wasn't much of a decision. Yesterday, he signed a one-year contract with the Philadelphia Eagles and spoke to the media this morning at training camp.
You know, obviously that's an obstacle, and, you know, I'm going to come in every day and learn as much as I can from these guys, learn as much as I can from Nick and Carson and Nate and all those guys, Joe, and, you know, just hit it hard. I mean, like, it's my opportunity whenever that comes, whatever this is. You know, I assume they signed me for a reason, so, you know, I'm just going to come in and give them everything I have in terms of picking it up, trying to push myself and learn as much as I can mentally and take that on, while also making sure I stay up on everything physically. So, you know, it's going to be tough, but again, it's a challenge and I'm excited for it. Like I said, it's better than sitting on the couch.
A place with five quarterbacks kind of puts you in a roster crunch. What made this opportunity appealing to you, or was it simply the fact that it was an NFL job?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think obviously talking with what he had asked me earlier, I think Coach Peterson and Coach Taylor and all those guys do a great job. So I think for me, you know, being able to learn as much as I can from those specific individuals, I think made it a good opportunity. And you know, I got a lot of respect for Carson. We came out together, so being able to kind of pick his brain. He's been in this system for a long time, and Nick obviously has had a lot of things going on in his career. So, you know, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to come in, learn, push myself, compete, and get back in. So,
why didn't it work with the Jets?
You know, I don't know. I'm not going to really dwell on the past. Like I said, you know, I've had a lot of time to reflect and a lot of time to work this offseason, and, you know, that's been my focus. And I'm just, you know, I'm happy to be here. I'm living in the moment.
What happened in Oakland?
Practice today, what are the conversations like with all of the quarterbacks with Press Taylor? What were those conversations?
Yeah, they were good. I mean, we were just trying to cover as much as we could on the fly. You know, it helps getting those mental reps and then studying tonight, being able to look over the concepts, the protections, the formations, all those things. Being able to see it, you know, I'm going to see it. I saw it at practice. I'm going to see it here in the meeting room in a little bit, and I'm going to see it again later on tonight. So, you know, seeing it 3 or 4 times, then being able to go over and look at it again tonight, it really helps cement things. So, you know, like I said, it's a process, and I'm just enjoying it.
Christian Hackenberg, former Penn State quarterback, there talking to the media this morning at Philadelphia Eagles training camp, went through his first practice, watching, but not participating in any team drills. He stayed after practice for about 20 minutes or so, throwing to a few teammates. And it was last Thursday night. The Eagles fell to the Steelers 31-14 in the first NFL preseason game of the 2018 season. Next up for Philadelphia, they'll be traveling to Foxborough Thursday night to take on the New England Patriots. You can catch the Eagles live on Eagle 107. Pre-game at 6:30. Marilyn Mike will have the call beginning at 7:30. Not too long ago here on the Steve Jones Show, we discussed Big Ten Conference injury reports.
Availability reports. In other words, who's hurt. All right. And James Franklin's always had a standard policy, and the standard policy has been quite simple. If a guy can't play and is out for the season, then they'll report it. Well, that's not how they do things in the NFL. In the NFL, and this goes back to the 50s, they tell you whether a guy is out, doubtful, questionable.
And that's it now. There's no more probable.
No more probable. If you're not on the list, it's assumed you're probable. Right? The suit used to say to me day to day, I said, suit, aren't we all? All right, so.
That is true.
It confused him. All right, so.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, he's got a kid going to college. He's kind of locked up in. And now it's been proposed that college football, or the Big Ten, does the same thing. And a lot of people are in favor of it. Believe it or not, guess who's in favor of it? Jim Harbaugh. The guy who doesn't even put out a depth chart. Doesn't put out a depth chart. He's in favor of it. Huh? What? Okay. I mean, now remember, for years in the NFL, he had to live with it. I mean, he had to live with this in the NFL. And that's why the depth chart thing always baffled me. And I thought, this guy in the NFL, I mean, what the heck? And he won that way. He did fine. But now there's been talk about doing these availability reports, as they call them, in college football. So James Franklin was asked about that. And some of his quotes today include, he says, the problem is, how are you going to enforce all these things? Which he is correct about that, because how many years in a row was Tom Brady's name on the Patriots injury report? You can put him on the injury report. And, of course, for some odd reason, Brady kept showing up every week, despite being on the injury report. He'd show up at the game, appear to play, lead a couple of big drives, win, move on. So teams can play games with it, especially if they don't respect it. So James Franklin said, he says, how are you going to enforce everything? He said, you want each program playing under the same rules. He says that is worthy. He said, but the ideas of enforcing the rules create problems. He said, one program is doing one thing, another's doing exactly the opposite. He says, it makes it challenging. He says, but for me, I'm not necessarily looking to do anything to help people in terms of who they're choosing and who they're betting on. For us, I want to know what the rules are within our state. I want to know what the rules are nationally. And once I know what they are, then we'll work around them. But to be honest with you, besides that, we're going to educate our players on what they need to be aware of. We're going to educate our coaches on what they need to be aware of. And besides that, it's going to be business as usual. He was then asked about keeping injuries secret, to which he said, part of it is gambling, part of it is our players' health, which is personal. He says there are also HIPAA laws when it comes to those type of things. Now, remember, with a HIPAA law, the individual has to sign off that the injury or whatever can be released. Now, okay, just standard you go in the hospital, you have to sign something like that. All right? If the player doesn't want to sign it, then it can't be released. Now, then he was asked. Then I think he's talking about Mark Allen here. He says the other thing is, if I tell you Mark has had a bad ankle, what's he going to do? What's the opposing team going to do? Go after the bad ankle? So if you have a weakness, why are you going to put your weaknesses on the table and let people know what they are? He said, for us, we're going to try to gain as much information as we possibly can about our opponent, and we're going to try to limit the amount of information that we give our opponent. So that's all it comes down to. All I care about is whatever the rules are, we're going to follow the rules. We're going to live within those rules and then go from there. But what I don't understand at this point is how we're going to enforce those rules. And he's correct about that. Is this going to be a compliance enforced rule? Is this going to going on each individual campus? Is there an NCAA enforcement rule? What are the penalties for it? So I just think we have to be careful because we have enough rules right now, and we have a hard time enforcing those rules, and now we're adding more. I mean, those are all absolutely valid points, by the way. To me, valid points. Like you could do anything with one of these reports that you want. As I mentioned, as Matt mentioned, probable is no longer on there. Now, I don't think Brady was listed as probable by the Patriots. He was always listed as questionable, right?
That is correct.
Right. And then every Sunday the question was answered the same way. Hey, there he is.
He's fine, or he's playing through it.
Good news. Tom's okay. I mean, when it gets to the point where it becomes a running joke, is that effective? Where it becomes a joke? I mean, you have to ask that question. And again, and I pointed this out before about the HIPAA laws. What is it? Say you have a coach. So Coach Catrillo is out there, and Coach Catrillo is coaching his team, and he gets them in a room and says, all right, HIPAA laws. I don't want anybody to release to anybody their injuries, so we're going to cite that who has a problem with it. Now what do you do? What do you do? How do you enforce that? I can see that as a scenario where all the players agree that, guess what? No, I don't want my injury released. So they don't sign off on it. Well, now they can't release the injury, right? I don't mind if, for example, on a player availability, that they release it once and it's Friday morning and they announce whether said player is out. No questionable, no probable, no doubtful, but they list the player as out. People that they know are not going to be playing in the game. Because let's be frank about this. Most teams are done practicing by Thursday night. If you don't know Friday morning whether somebody's going to be able to play or not, I mean, I think almost everybody has a really good idea about 95% of the players that did not practice during the week. Every once in a while, you do have a player that may not have practiced a lot during the week, but hey, look, the extra 48 hours between the Thursday practice and the game opens the door, and and it's a veteran. Because it's a veteran, they know exactly what the deal is. They know the game plan, so they can get through a week of practice without practicing, and they can go through a week of what's needed to get them back on the field, and they're able to play on Saturday. That does happen. Doesn't usually happen with a younger player, but usually can happen with an older player. But 9.5 times out of 10, a team hits Friday morning and they know who's out for that week. Now, I don't mean permanently. I don't mean, this injury, it's a 4-week injury. It's a 7 or 8-week injury. But on that Friday, they know what they have. And remember, too, when you're traveling in the Big Ten, you have a 70-man roster on the road. You know who's not traveling. So maybe that is one way they can do it in college, where you have to list who is out. Not what the injury is, but on Friday morning you list who is out. And no doubtful, no questionable, no day-to-day. The pros are pretty cut and dried about that. You see what the NFL does. Baseball has now, what's baseball, 10-day disabled list?
There's
20.
Yeah, there's 10-day. I think there's a 7-day DL now, too.
7-day, I think, is on concussions.
Oh, yes, you're right, yeah.
7 days on concussions, 10-day disabled list, and a 60-day.
Right.
Now, those are the long term where there's no way Bobby's getting back this year. So you have those. I mean, that way you retain control of the player's contract and so forth, and they're hurt. Baseball used to have a 15-day, 21-day, 60-day. Now they got a 7 and a 10 and a 60. The NBA, not sure what they do.
It's basically day to day, and I think they have questionable and doubtful and probable.
And then some guys don't play, and it's CD. It's coach's decision. They weren't listed on the injury report. The NHL, it's upper body, lower body. And they tell you before the game who's in, who's out, who's a scratch.
You want to talk about obscure injury reports? There it is right there for the NHL.
Yeah, upper body, lower body.
You never know what it is, and that drives me crazy.
Hey, here's one for you. Lower body entails a lot of...
So does upper body.
A lot of possibilities. There are a lot of possibilities here. And obviously people want to know, ex-player sprained a knee. Oh, man, that's probably... Because fans are pretty sophisticated about this stuff. They kind of know how long things go now. Well, yeah, boy, that sounds like he's going to be out 3-4 games. That sounds like he's going to be out 3-4 weeks. The fans are pretty good about knowing that stuff because they've been around it their whole life.
Not only that, too, but the NHL reporters, most of them at least, do a pretty good job in breaking into, okay, what is exactly the injury and how long is said player going to be out for? And that's how fans get to know now.
I mean, so maybe a compromise is, hey, look, on Friday morning you have to declare who's out.
I think that's fair because that's basically what the NFL does. You have to put it out by Friday or definites, unless you put a player as a game time decision. And I think that'd be fair too for college football.
I mean, you don't have to declare somebody as doubtful. You don't have to declare anybody as questionable or probable or whatever. You don't have to do any of that stuff. But on Friday morning by noon, because every staff meets Friday morning, by noon you have to post which players are out. Okay. And then you go from there. Because, not even water from Lourdes is going to be able to save somebody, so you move on.
So no game time decision on your end? Just by Friday? Definite answer?
Well, in other words, if there's a game time decision on a player, I don't put him on the list.
Oh, right, that's true. Oh, there you go. Yeah.
All right, in other words, for example, last season, Friday, Penn State puts out its injury list. John Reed, out. Well, we already, we know John Reed, got hurt. We know he's out. Okay. Yeah. Now, and if a player is listed as out and then plays, now I think you've got to think about finding institutions for being inaccurate on the injury report. And where do you hit them the hardest? You always hit them hardest in the pocketbook. So that's what they have. I mean, that would be something that if we were in a room and they said, let's brainstorm some ideas, that would be my brainstorming idea. Let's go with that. Friday at noon, you declare who's out for you. And if there's a gray area on a guy, you don't put that guy on the report. Okay, if there's a gray area, you don't put him on the report. Like I said, you can have a veteran who doesn't practice all week, who's trying to rehab an injury all week, and because they're a veteran, they know the scheme offensively or defensively, where even though practice would really help, because practice always helps anyway, but they've played enough where they know what they're doing out there, and it turns out you can get them to be a go on Saturday, that's a person you don't put on the injury list. And if that's the case, then and if they don't play in the game, they don't play in the game. And you say, look, especially if it's on the road, look, we brought Bobby with us because we thought, there was an outside chance Bobby could play, so we weren't going to declare him out. Because we brought him with us, and it turned out that as of this morning, it didn't respond. He couldn't play, but he's here on the trip with us. Believe me, you don't want to take up, when you're bringing 70 guys on the road, you don't want to take up a lot of space with different guys where they're eating up a spot where maybe somebody else can be on there. Now, what's going to further complicate this in-out thing will be this. Remember the new rules when it comes to the usage of players. You can play up to 4 games and not lose your season of eligibility. So take, for example, a great freshman that you have. A lot of this will apply to freshmen. Sometimes this is going to apply to a veteran, too. But you have a great freshman. Great freshman plays the first 3 games of the season. But then you decide, hey, look, we're going to preserve this guy because we've got enough veterans to kind of fill the gap. Okay, fine. And they're not going to play again until December. Well, you're not going to declare that player out because the player could conceivably play for you. So you're not going to, but it does complicate it. We'll come back with more in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Nobody likes road work. And we've seen a lot of it this summer.
And there's more.
Road work is scheduled for North 4th Street in Sunbury on the 16th. So now is the time to get to Sunbury Motors Ford before the road work begins. SMC is on a mission to sell 50 vehicles in just 5 days before the road work starts. Save up to a whopping $16,200 on the area's largest selection of new 2018 Ford trucks. Choose from over 80 trucks with new 2018 Ford F-150s slashed to as low as $25,995. Pick from 56 2018 Ford Escapes priced as low as $18,820. And there's 0% financing for up to 72 months, plus discounts as high as $5,000 on many new Fords. SMC has 21 2018 Ford Focuses starting at $14,925. SMC is on a mission to sell 50 vehicles before the North 4th Street road work begins. Sunbury Motors Ford in the North 4th Street Auto Plaza, Sunbury.
For nearly 100 years, Purdy Insurance has been your locally owned, family-operated source for insurance products. With a staff of over 20 and partnerships with some of the industry's most trusted companies, Purdy has the experience and resources to get the job done. Whether you need personal, home, and auto, or complex business insurance solutions, Purdy will help you navigate through the process. Call today at 570-286-5855. Or better yet, stop in their Sunbury office to see what Purdy Insurance can do for you.
Taking your calls at 800-795-9565. This is The Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. Now, from the Sunbury Motors Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And we've got a best of week with you on WKOK and Sean Carey, Monday edition of The Steve Jones Show, brought to you by Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Go to the pros. Go to the people that will treat you like family when life happens. They will search the reputable products and get you the policy that fits your needs and your budget. Homeowners insurance, renters insurance, auto, business, and of course life insurance too. All from Purdy Insurance on Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. How about the big golf outing yesterday in St. Louis? Brooks Koepka, now in rare air. He has joined Gene Sarazen, 1922, Ben Hogan, 1948, Jack Nicklaus, 1980, and Tiger Woods, 2000. And Brooks Koepka, 2018. They are the only players to win the PGA Championship and the U.S. Open in the same year. And how about Tiger yesterday? Very impressive performance. Great comeback by Tiger. A little short, though. But boy, some of the loudest, some people that have been following golf for decades say it was one of the loudest crowds they have ever heard at a golf tournament yesterday in St. Louis. So checking this day in sports history, August the 13th, in Saratoga, New York, there was actually a horse by the name of Upset. It's true. Upset defeated Man o' War. Man o' War, the famous horse, only lost one time in his horse racing career. It happened this day in 1919 by a horse named Upset. And what made the race of Man o' War so impressive, the fact that he came from so far behind, and he also conceded 15 pounds to Upset. And it was about a year later, Man o' War, who, by the way, beat Upset in 6 previous meetings and then lost this day in 1919 at Saratoga to Upset. A year later, in 1920, he was retired to stud, foaled 64 stakes winners, including the 1937 Triple Crown winner, War Admiral. Not too shabby. 1989, Payne Stewart won the PGA Championship in Hawthorne Woods, Illinois, shot 31 on the last 9, and overtook 10 other players with a final round of 67. It was the first of 3 major championships for the man who, of course, famous for wearing those knickers. And in 1999, Steffi Graf retired from tennis at the age of 30. She said that she lost her will to excel. She left with 22 Grand Slam tournament titles, including the French Open Championship over Martina Hingis a couple of months earlier. Only Margaret Court of Australia with more slam titles, 24 at that point. Of course, there's this other great tennis player by the name of Serena Williams. And that's a look at this day in sports history. And one of the greatest Penn State tight ends in the history of the Penn State football program, now in the pros with the Miami Dolphins. We expect him to make a great impact in year number 1. Talking about Miami Dolphins tight end Mike Gesicki joined us on the show a couple of months back.
Very pleased to bring in a guy that's going to go down, at least for me and my tenure here, as one of the favorite guys around here, and that is Mike Gesicki, now with the Miami Dolphins. Mike, how are you? It's great to have you with us.
Well, man, Steve, how's everything going, man? Thanks for having me on.
It's great to have you on. What is it like to sit there now knowing you're a professional?
Oh, man, it's, I know it sounds cliche, but it just brings home true, man. I've been, working for this for a long time, and now to finally have this opportunity, I'm just trying to make the most of it.
Mike, after the bowl game, what was the balance for you in terms of keeping football skills relevant, but also making sure you were combine ready?
Yeah, so I was training down at Pensacola, Florida, at a training facility called Exos, and I actually got recommended to go there through Chris Godwin from the year before, and he kind of talked to me about it, and obviously his performance at the combine spoke for itself as well, and they just did a great job in terms of building your speed, your strength, getting your weight right, all that kind of stuff, and then they had segments throughout the day where you'd have a position coach come in and you'd get your football work in as well. So it was a lot of work, but something that I had a lot of fun with.
When the Dolphins drafted you, right, and they called you, what did they tell you right away? Just that you were picked, or did they have a little more extensive conversation with you?
I saw the phone ring. It said Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and I kind of knew right away. And obviously, there was a lot of excitement. They said, we're going to make you a Miami Dolphin, man. We're so excited to have you. We got big plans for you, and we're excited to have you on board. And it was awesome. I had somebody that believed in me, and an organization that was going to put a lot of time and invest a lot in me to ultimately come in there and do what I know I'm capable of doing.
Mike, Adam Gase built a lot of that reputation by being the offensive coordinator when Peyton Manning was the quarterback with the Denver Broncos. Then, of course, he went on to become a head coach.
Yep.
What's the initial read that you have of him, especially considering how tight ends were used by him at different levels?
Yeah, Coach Gase is an unbelievable guy. Both as a football coach and then as just as a man. He's done a great job, helping me throughout this. The OTAs and the mini camp, helping me transition into being a professional. The offense that he runs and that he brought into Miami, it's definitely tight end friendly. I'm happy to be a tight end in this offense. I think it's able to use some of my skill set and some of my abilities, being able to move around the field and create mismatches. And the entire coaching staff, the guys that are around me in the tight end room and on the offense side of the ball, and honestly everybody, they're all great. Everybody's out there trying to help you, assisting you in any way you need, and I think that's kind of the team and the culture that I'm happy to be a part of.
Mike, the chunk of your time at Penn State, Ricky Ronnie was your position coach, and then, of course, the final game as the offensive coordinator, and Tyler Bowen was the assistant coach in charge of tight ends. What was it like for you to learn under Ricky Ronnie, and in the end, what did he mean to your development as a player?
Oh, yeah. Coach Ronnie was, everything in terms of, my development and, what he meant to me as a football player and as, a person and all that kind of stuff. He helped develop me on and off the field. And, I'm so happy now that, he's the offensive coordinator and, got promoted and all that kind of stuff because, he's, probably, one of, if not, the smartest coach on our staff. And, I'm so excited to turn on the games and watch the games and, know the play calls even before, they're about to come out. And, just kind of, just be a part of it. And then, obviously, he's going to do a phenomenal job. And, I can't say enough about him. And, I honestly, without a doubt, would not be, where I am today. Without his coaching and his assistance for those last 2 years at Penn State.
And by the way, if you ever talk to Ricky Ronnie about Mike, he says you have no idea how lucky I am to coach a guy like Mike Gesicki. So it runs both ways.
Awesome.
It's true. Look, I got to see it every day, Mike. So I know what you did.
Appreciate it.
Believe me, everyone appreciates you coming here because I remember the night you verbally committed. And it was a Thursday night. And you're saying, how the heck does he remember that? Here's the reason why. Bill, we do the coaches show on Thursday night. Yep. Bill O'Brien was the coach at the time. He comes in and he says to me, and Bill's not like usually doesn't say Steve or whatever. He goes, "Hey Jonesy," he says, I need a few minutes, Jonesy, at the top here. He says, could you kind of hold the fort? I got to take a phone call. I said, okay. So I start the show, and usually, as usual, I botch it up. The ratings fall, and then Bill comes in, the ratings go back up. So we go to a commercial break, and of course we cannot say that, because of rules, we can't say that it was you. And he leans over to me in a break. He says between you and me, he says, "We got Gesicki." He says, and we beat Ohio State to get him, Steve.
That's awesome. That is hilarious.
It's a true story. That's how I found that. So I found out like 5 minutes after you called him because he told me in the commercial break. He was excited. But then James had to re-recruit you. What did that take?
Honestly, not much. I knew Coach Franklin. He offered me a Vanderbilt, so I knew that staff. And when they got the job and they brought over the entire staff, it was honestly a no-brainer. He came over to one of my basketball games when I was in high school, and I got to know him and the staff and all those all that kind of stuff. And playing for Coach Franklin for the last 4 years was awesome. And he actually came out to one of my practices. The whole coaching staff was out at one of the practices that couple weeks ago in Miami. So it was cool. They were at a camp down there, and it was a great opportunity to see those guys again, and it just kind of shows the family and the brotherhood at Penn State.
And in high school, you played basketball, and you were Player of the Year twice. You also played volleyball, and I watched what I thought was a great conversation last night on MLB Network. It was Greg Amsinger along with Joe Girardi and Jim Thome. And they were talking at one point about, do you encourage your children to play other sports? And the two of them were, absolutely you do. What did it mean to you, and in some ways did it help you play other sports in high school?
Oh, I mean, I would suggest to any young kid out there, play as many sports as you can. It's only going to help you become a better athlete. If you kind of specialize in one, then you're missing the traits from the other sports. I think one of my best qualities in football is being able to high point the ball and go up and get it where other guys can't. And I think that comes a lot from basketball, going up for a rebound, or volleyball, going up for a big block or a spike. So I think that all my sports kind of help transform me into the athlete that I am today, and that helps me take advantage of my size and my speed on the football field.
We mentioned your recruitment. You came to Penn State at a time where it might have been difficult for people to come to Penn State. You did. You stayed, and ended up winning a Big Ten championship and a Fiesta Bowl championship. In conjunction with the fifth-year players and the four-year seniors that you were with, your class, how much satisfaction did you walk out with as to where you placed Penn State?
Oh, it's awesome. Going to Penn State, like you said, it was at a time where not too many people believed in Penn State. It was more of a tougher time. People wanted to call it a rebuilding, all that kind of stuff. And we were able to, with help of my freshman year, we had guys on that team like a Mike Hull, and then in my sophomore year, we had some older guys that still kind of kept the program afloat. And then finally, my junior and senior year, it was awesome. It was kind of the storybook ending, all that kind of stuff. We were able to get a Big Ten championship, Fiesta Bowl, back-to-back 11-win seasons, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of get Penn State rolling back in the direction where it belongs. And with the recruiting that Coach Franklin does, and the talent that's at Penn State right now, I think Penn State's just only going to continue to be on a steady incline from here on out.
All right, new program, that means new playbook. What does it take for you to start getting a grasp on the playbook the Dolphins want to run?
So it's definitely a little bit more complex than what we run at Penn State. The terminology is a little bit different. Some of it's more, a little bit more lengthy than, a play call in college. But just like anything else, it's just repetition. The more times you run through it, the more times you get a physical rep at it, you hear it in the huddle. It's all starting to come together. And it was good to have OTAs in the mini camp before actual training camp starts in about a month, just because, that was kind of the first time going through it. You kind of got the mistakes out of the way. You got the, all the learning out of the way. And now, you come through and you go through it a second time, and things will be coming faster, a whole lot of less thinking, and just playing faster and playing confident.
What kind of read do you have? I mean, you had great rapport with Trace McSorley, also with with you did with Christian, you did with Tommy Stevens as well. What kind of feel do you have so far with Ryan Tannehill?
Oh yeah, Ryan's a great guy. He's a guy that pull me aside during practice and just kind of coach me up on a route. He'll teach me something new every day, and he's a guy that has a great touch on the football. He has it's just so easy to catch the ball when it's coming from him. He's such a great touch on the ball, and puts it in the right spot. And I mean, honestly, I'm really excited just to continue to develop and kind of be a target for him moving forward.
Is it a feeling down there, Mike, that that the Dolphins are close to a breakthrough and that you're entering at a great time?
Oh, absolutely. You look at it, 2 years ago they made the playoffs, and then last year, obviously Ryan got hurt, so I think that, kind of, just hurt the mojo a little bit. And, now that he's back and, they kind of, starting to put some pieces together, it's definitely an exciting time to be part of this program. Very similar to, kind of a little journey to Penn State, so I'm excited for the future in Miami, playing for the Dolphins. And, I mean, I think that the future's definitely bright.
Mike, I want to thank you for the time, and I know that you're going to be around here a lot because it was interesting watching you in the spring. You're actually taking time coaching up tight ends in the spring every once in a while. You'd stop by the sideline and say, well, you should have done this and this. Suddenly, Mike Gesicki's become a coach.
Yeah, man. I love getting back into State College, man. So anytime that I can and anytime I can help somebody, I'm always looking forward to that.
You will always go down in this book here as one of the best I've ever seen here at Penn State. I appreciate the time very much. My best to your family, because your parents, you couldn't ask for nicer people. I appreciate them very much and you. Thanks, Mike.
All right, Steve. Thank you very much for having me on, man.
Mike Gesicki of the Miami Dolphins. He put together a great record-setting career here at Penn State. And you have a feeling that Mike Gesicki is going to put together an outstanding NFL career, starting with the Miami Dolphins.